Hello boys and girls, if you haven't gotten the news yet, we're getting some nerfs and buffs of course next week, but the Oh Godly composition that was actually reigning in M+, is basically getting nerfed all over the place, so you can find the article of that we're looking at right now in the description of this video. So I'll just go through the important God comp nerfs. So the Guardian Druid gets a little bit less damage, I think quite deserved, it's not that big. The Evoker Braid of Ions is getting nerfed as well, so more nerfs to the Evoker. Mage has across the board damage nerfs, which look quite significant. We'll get to the Paladin in the second, and then of course the Shadow Priest also gets some nerfs. Now let's go through the Holy Paladin nerf, which as you can see the list is a little bit longer than the other ones. And the first one is actually huge. All healing is reduced by 5%. I think we all know what that means. That means that we'll basically have to heal a little bit more to get to back where we were before. Next we have Light's Protection, now reduces damage taken by 10% instead of 16. This is the talent that basically reduces the damage that your allies take as long as they have Glimmer of Light on them, and the 16% is spread between all Glimmer of Light targets. Now this is not that big, so they will still be taking less damage, but instead of 16 it's going to be 10, and if you're spreading this to like 4 or 5 people, this is basically like 1% difference that you're going to see to a single person, so this is not something that I'm worried about. Overflowing light now causes the absorb shield to be 30% instead of 50 from the Glimmer of Light, and this is actually huge. This is like a 40% nerf. So let me show you some numbers. Those are some dungeons that I've run recently, and those are the levels, the affects, the main affects, and of course the spells that I've been casting, with the agreement that I don't play the same in every dungeon. In some I play worse than others. You can see that overflowing light across the board basically does from 4 to 6% of my overall healing, which equates to a bit 4 point something million, right? So this number is actually going to drop to around 3 million in most of those dungeons, and you're going to lose about 2 or 3% of your overall healing. So this is now basically getting added on top of the all healing reduction by 5%, and that is actually going to bring that number up significantly, especially with the next on the list. There's Deliverance, now increases the healing taken from Holy Shock, this is the one that matters, by 15% instead of 25. So just by looking at all of these, we are now looking at about probably 10% nerf over to the healing that we're going to be putting out. I'll skip that for a second. Then Fading Light now creates an absorb shield for 3% of the healing and damage done by the Holy Power Generators instead of 10. Now this is a 70% nerf. This is huge. I'll bring back the picture so you can see how much Fading Light does. It's about 4 to 5% of my overall healing, more towards the 4, right? But this number is going to drop significantly, right? So from about let's say 3 million, it's going to go down to less than a million. So the way I'm reading this, it's basically deleting this talent. It's probably much more powerful on higher keys because, as you can see, I don't run that high of keys, but for us normal people, I don't think this is going to be that huge, because we can pick another talent instead of Fading Light. This is actually a node. The other talent is called Seal of Order, and instead of giving you the shield, it actually gives you more armor, which makes you a little bit more tankier. Probably you don't need that, but it also gives you cooldown reduction to your Holy Power Generators. So that means that you'll be able to cast more Judgments and more Crusader Strikes, which eventually you can convert into more healing. So this is a nerf, but probably not as big as the others. The thing that I don't like is that they're basically killing this talent, and everybody will be basically forced to use the other one, because now this is basically, I don't know, it will be insignificant healing and it will be not worth taking. So this is what I don't like. And the rest of the listed items here are basically damage reduction buffs. So Blessing of Summer is now going to cause the attacks to deal less damage. So your mage is basically going to buffing your damage less. Judgment can cast the extra consecrations now 30% of the time instead of 50%. And then we have the consecration damage reduced by 25%. I don't have numbers for the damage, but consecration is usually your top damage for the dungeon, which means that Holy Paladin is now going to be doing much less damage. I haven't done the math, but it's going to be quite a lot. However, I would also say that if you're not pushing really high keys, your damage does not matter. So if you are into 25 and 26s, then this actually is something that you should be concerned about. But if you're running 20s, if you're running 22s, don't worry about it. Your damage is not going to be the decisive factor of whether or not you time the dungeon. At that level, it's usually playing without mistakes and just making sure to keep everybody alive, which is not directly connected to your damage. So, what does that all mean? Is that composition going to still be godly? Probably it's going to stay the same, although you can see now some shake-ups, which is good because so far, if you were not one of the classes that we mentioned, basically you didn't get invited into hierarchies in N+. Maybe with the exception of the tanks, the bears could sometimes be substituted for a DH. So that's a good point overall for the health of the game, I would say, because if you're playing Hunter or Shaman or something, then you're just left out of the game, right? But what I don't like about all of this is that the changes are very volatile. We saw already a big Paladin nerf, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now they're doing this, and we don't know what's going to happen next. But the Paladin overall, from all the nerfs since they released it, it's probably 20-25% nerfs, if not more. So I don't know how they do their testing, but they need to do a better job, because those huge changes are fine for top level teams, but if you're somebody like me who's just plugging his keys, and I also get a lot of people who are telling me, oh, which character should I play, right? What should I gear? The Paladin, the Shaman, or something else? Because I don't have the time to play all the characters. So if you made your choice, and your choice was a Paladin, and now you get nerf, well, let's not say nerf to the ground, but you get this huge nerf, this is then really bad for you, because you can't just go and gear another tune, right? The best players probably have like 10 different characters geared already, so if something like that happens, they just log into a different character and they continue to play the game. If that happens to us, that's really bad, because we're basically waiting for the next patch or the next expansion to come, which is very bad for the health of the game. So from that perspective, I think they need to do a little bit better when they're testing. I know they want to do a good job and buff the new classes so people actually engage them, but if this is what happens every time, because this is what happened to the Evoker, the Preservation Evoker last season, etc., then this is not something that I think resonates well with the basic player base of WoW. And the other thing to mention here is that all of this is actually very hard to balance, not only because the game is complicated, but now we also have the Evoker buff. So when you're tuning something like this, how do you do it? Do you just tune it because you're thinking about a Holy Paladin, or are you considering that there is an augmentation Evoker in the group? Because if there is, those numbers are different, right? You're healing for more, people are doing more damage, etc. So things just play out differently. Now, this, of course, is a whole different topic, a whole different problem that I don't know how Blizzard can solve. It's even worse now, because basically one of the spots is basically safe for the Augmentation Evoker, for that support class. So that leaves even less flexibility and even less space in the M+ scene to play. Of course, many possible solutions. I don't think they'll delete the class, so all the tuning will have to be done around it. But we'll see how it turns out. Overall, I would say don't be too scared of those changes unless you're running really high keys. Those do not matter that much to you, right? So you have to press a little bit more buttons, you have to heal a little bit more in the 20s, but it is not something that will be unmanageable, and it's not something that is going to nerf you to the ground. So if you've played and you've geared your Paladin, I would say at this point, don't be scared. You'll be doing much less damage, that's clear, but damage is not important into lower keys. So just go out there and, of course, press your healing buttons. Everything should be fine. I do have a Holy Paladin healing guide, which is not going to change much on this, so you can check this in the description of this video as well. And if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments below or in my Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, good luck in your keys.